this is Danielle Tremblay of InsightWithAnimals.com. So Eleanor from Canada emailed me a couple weeks ago, and she posed a couple really good questions that I thought would really benefit those listeners who are really into wildlife, really into animals, who really have an appreciation for the nature and the beauty that's around us. So I'm actually going to read her question. I'm going to switch screens, jump on over to her email, and I'm going to address each of the 3 questions she posed one at a time. So first thing she writes is, I have a question which might interest animal lovers in general. Other than taking an animal communication course, are there any mental or spiritual things an animal lover might do to convey to animals nearby that the animal lover really does send love and respect to those animals? So my reply to this is, of course, yes, there are certainly things you can do. If it's a domestic animal, it's as simple as saying, I love you. If it's a wild animal, you can say, I love you, certainly out loud or with your thoughts. They're probably going to startle less if you use just your thoughts. Or you can do something more simple to either domestic or wild animals. You could simply gaze gently at them with your eyes open, or put your awareness and focus on them gently with your eyes closed, and just send the energy of love and appreciation of them. So love is actually an energy, and when that energy emanates towards them, they have an awareness of what that is. They have a recognition and an understanding. So they may not have an understanding why in that moment, why you're appreciating them, but they will get that, oh wow, that being really appreciates me. And of course, that's something that, we like to be appreciated. I'm sure the majority of them, if not all of them, value that as well. So you can think it, you can say it out loud, or even easier, send just the energy or the emotion their way. Second question Eleanor asks is, along with that, are there any clues an animal might exhibit to show they received the message? So we humans tend to really focus on body language and behavioral responses of our animal friends. We always hope that they would do something, or our anticipation is that they will surprise us and do something, especially if we are sending them a telepathic thought, especially when it's very new and novel to us. I remember in my early days, I was very hopeful that animals would actually show me in their body language that they were hearing me. And over the years, on occasion, I've had that happen. So I was in a barn at an animal sanctuary, and myself and probably about 8 other people were going from stall to stall in this barn talking to various horses. And I tend to work with my eyes closed, whether I'm working in person or on the phone with clients. Just helps me to focus more inwardly on my senses. And so I was standing beside the stall of this horse who was, sticking his head out into the hall. And as we're asking questions of him, he is often doing yes with his face or no with his face and head. I mean, it was very clear he was emphasizing with his yes and no of his head language what it is that he was relaying out loud. And the people started giggling after a while, and so I opened up my eyes, and that's when I observed, oh my gosh, the horse is actually changing its body language in order to support or correspond the words that I'm hearing him say that I'm relaying out loud. So that was very neat. But I'll tell you, it doesn't happen that often. The majority of the animals, domestic and wild, I find, are so just used to telepathy, used to talking with each other, horse to cow, horse to horse, horse to dog, etc., that to send a thought to another being isn't that much of a novel thing for them, not that big of a deal. It's kind of very natural to them. So for them to have to change or to choose to change their body language just to prove to another being that they were heard isn't something I find they do on a regular basis. So with that said, you can always ask an animal to demonstrate, if they'd be so kind to do so, that they heard you. Case in point, so in my earlier days of doing animal communication, I had just taken my first class, and I was doing a lot of independent practice on my own. And one of the things I asked one of my specific cats in my family was, would you be willing, since I'm a beginner, to really help me out? Sometimes I doubt that I'm hearing you. And so I would love some sort of support and recognition there. Would you be willing to change your body language every now and then in order to show me that you're listening? Well, by golly, that particular cat in the family sure did, again and again. She would turn, she would look at me, I would ask her, would you be willing to come over here? I'd ask her that silently in my mind, and she would come over, get up, stop whatever she was doing, and come on over. And then it reached a point where she said, after a few months, she's like, all right, Danielle, I'm no longer going to change my body language just for you to have the proof that I'm being heard, because this isn't what I do naturally. In a natural form of communication, there's the sending and the receiving without the tied expectation for me to jump when you say jump or whatnot. So when it comes to wildlife, guys, you can certainly ask the deer, you're sending love and appreciation, and then you could say, dear, I'm very new at this. Would you be willing to just show me that you feel this energy, or that you heard me say something to you with your body language? Would you be willing to offer me that? And then pay attention. The deer may look up, raise her head, stop what she's doing for a moment, and gaze at you in the eyes. She may do something that's a little uncharacteristic of whatever she's doing in that moment, just as a way of indicating to you that she heard. And then again, she may choose not to. And at that point, you need to just move into the faith and belief and trust that on some level she heard you. She felt that energy. So third, great question. Eleanor makes the comment in her email, it's sad to say, in spite of my best efforts to move slowly and lightly, she's referring to walking through the forest, wildlife seemed to shoot off as if I were some kind of marauding demon, even though they have seen me daily for close to a decade. Okay, so my observations regarding this is, yes, wildlife, as many of them are timid to some degree of man, and as a result, we can startle them. So how do you go about not startling them? Let me offer you a bit of an experiment or an observation that I had with wild rabbits. So the last place I lived, there were wild rabbits galore in the complex. And, they were out all seasons in plentiful numbers, so I had lots of practice. What I observed is when I was walking on the sidewalk and the rabbits were, hanging out in the bushes around the grass, around the few trees we had in the complex, the rabbits would go into normal rabbit body language. When the predator gets close, they would often go into freeze mode in the hopes of not being seen. And what I observed was when my mind was silent and I wasn't even emanating an emotion, I wasn't offering them anything, I was just aware of them like they were aware of me, and I didn't change my pace of walking or anything. If my mind was silent, I often could walk right by that rabbit and the rabbit would not move, would not leave its place. My comparison experiment was I would maintain the same, looking straight forward like I did with my head being, in silence. And this time I would actually, as I was walking by at a pace, I would say to the rabbit, hi, how are you? Or, I mean you no harm. Or, it's a beautiful day. In other words, I would send them some sort of positive greeting. And my observations were, more times than not, the second I would send that, even positive, thought, it's like the rabbit got startled and they would suddenly move from their location, they'd run off. And so I did this experiment enough as an animal communicator, just last year, where it was like, wow, they really get startled when I even think to them. And I posed this scenario to my cat earlier today, and I said, can you explain to me what is this about? Why, even though I'm sending something positive, does the rabbit get startled? But with a silent mind, there's no reaction. And my cat was explaining that it's actually very simple. She's like, you startled the rabbit. She says the rabbit was all ears, all eyes, all in observation mode of you, the being, walking by. And the moment you sent something different than what she was observing in the moment, you sent an extraneous, bit of information to her, a thought in this case, more often than not, it startled the rabbit. And I said, but why would it startle the rabbit when I talk to you, my domestic animal family, all the time, and you guys don't seem to get startled? And, my cat's Lyra's response was, because the rabbit isn't used to talking to people. Not that many wild rabbits talk to people. So it was a bit of a surprise for the rabbit that there was a human talking to him or her. So it really did come in like lightning fast speed, and it was very abrupt to the rabbit, that thought. It was very just a surprise. So that explains the rabbit's behavior. So my thought for you, Eleanor, and others that want to walk through the woods and be in peace and promote peace with the other animals, the wildlife, is I would encourage you to just, do what you do naturally, but walk with a silent mind. walk in a space of respectful peace, respectful keeping your space over here, not imposing upon theirs, not having expectations tied to them regarding an absence or an expectation of behavior change. Just kind of allowing them the space to be who they are as you be who you are. It's kind of like blending in with nature, being one with the forest, being one with the plants and the animals, versus you being something different and hoping for a change or something unusual to happen around you. Become one with them, and I think you'll find that they startle less easily. All right, so I hope that helps everyone, and I wish you all the best. Bye-bye for now.